Will the rivals in your Call of the Netherdeep campaign draw weapons on your PCs, or will they stand side by side as allies? I'll be going over tactics and motivations of the rivals in battle. This is part of my series of videos going in depth on Call of the Netherdeep, so if you want to see the rest, check out up there. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to be using the tier 2 stats of the rivals and kind of talking about their motivations and roleplay around chapter 3 and 4. Again, these are just ideas. There's a lot of meaningful player choices and DM choices that can happen in this campaign, so your rivals could look a lot different and you might have different ideas, and that's okay. I'm gonna go through each rival individually, but I wanna start by saying a couple of overall points. First, the rivals aren't stupid. They're not going to get themselves slaughtered in any one battle. You might have one of them die, but generally, if things are looking grim, they're smart enough to retreat and find ways out of that battle so that your PCs don't just totally annihilate them. And the same goes if they're fighting monsters too. The rivals definitely have the potential to kill a PC, and while I think there are times where it's okay to fudge a roll, this is not one time where I'm going to be doing that. The repercussions of what would happen if one of the rivals killed the PCs and continued to antagonize them for the rest of this adventure are just too good to pass up. It sucks to lose a character, but it will just make that rivalry that much more tense. Now, I'm not going to try and make it happen, but you know how the rolls go. Sometimes these things do happen. It's also very possible that even in terms of retreating, your players might really just want to like hunt down and kill the rivals. The adventure doesn't hinge on them still being around necessarily. There are ways to sort of work around that if it happens. I wouldn't let it happen in like chapter 1, but it might happen. Okay, so starting with Ayo, the hot-headed leader of the group, she's likely to be like calling out orders and commanding stuff. Now, she does have an ability that's related to this called reposition. She might just kind of do it anyway as sort of part of the banter and to show that she's kind of the leader, and that's part of her abilities too. Now, she's also not dumb, so if someone overhears her tactics and it comes to bite her, she's not gonna keep doing that either. We also want to remember that Ayo has a bit of a crush on Galsariad. If he gets hurt or is looking grim, that might change what she does. She might go from being sort of fierce and aggressive to wanting to retreat if something's wrong with him. The same kind of goes for Dermot. Dermot is a longtime friend of hers, and even though at some points there's sort of a rift in their friendship, she doesn't want him to die. She doesn't want any of her party to die because she's a good leader, but she's gonna react much more emotionally if it's her crush or her longtime friend. And so if that's happening, you want to really put some emotion into her reaction, really just playing that up as best as you can. Now, the battle chatter is something that I'm not sure if I'm going to actually use. Whether you use it or not, it gives us a clue as to her characterization, right? She's really cocky in battle. Now, there are times when she's questioning herself as a leader, but she still is going to kind of put on that cocky facade and make everyone believe that she's the best in a battle situation and in a tense situation like that, because that's just who she is. Ayo is actually one of the least complicated in terms of battle tactics. Other than that though, she's probably going to dart around and just shoot arrows. She also has a skill called Pass Without a Trace, where if they need to flee or do something stealthy, she might bring that into play. You also want to keep in mind that Ayo has more than ever to prove at sort of this mid-campaign point, chapter 3 and chapter 4. In the Betrayer's Rise, a fight could come up. Ayo is the tiebreaker, so if the opinions of PCs are sort of split amongst the party, she breaks the tie, and if things go poorly, they're gonna start to question her leadership. All right, moving on to Dermot, our goblin cleric, best friend to Ayo. Now, depending on how Ayo and Dermot fall on their opinions on the PCs, they could be on opposite sides, and this could be a point at which, you know, something splinters their friendship a little bit, that first sort of stake that drives them a little bit apart. He compensates by being overly kind, but he's definitely potentially gonna disagree underneath it all. How do the PCs see this manifest? You could have him if you feel like he's having this sort of mental conflict. Maybe he loses his concentration without anything happening to him, looks a little shaken up, things like that. If he's not really believing in the cause of what they're doing, or he's questioning whether it's sort of the right thing to do. He also could be throwing out questions to Ayo in battle, like, are you sure about this? And things like that, which obviously she's not going to respond too kindly to. Another thing you could do if his relationship is splintering with Ayo is maybe in the past he used to buff her first right away. Maybe he's not. As far as battle tactics, Bless is probably one of the stronger abilities that Dermot has, and he can use it on 3 people. So he's maybe going to open up the battle and even just do that right away. He can do it for up to a minute if he's concentrating, and he might even just hold that concentration and keep using that because it's going to give his allies a nice advantage. Now, if someone is badly hurt or dying, he's obviously going to break his concentration on Bless or whatever else he was doing and go help. What he might also do though, especially if he disagrees with the motivations of the rest of the party, like maybe he likes your PCs, if one of them gets knocked out and is doing death saving throws, he might use his at will to do spare the dying on them. I think it's very possible that he wouldn't want to see someone get killed and he would save them even if they were maybe hostile or enemies. Now, Galsariad's quiet, he's got a confident aura. Even if underneath, kind of at this midpoint of the campaign, chapter 3, 4, a lot of stuff's getting thrown at him. He's starting to have questions. Now, in the heat of a battle that he's losing, that quiet confidence might crack a little bit. There's sweat on his brow. Maybe his hand is shaking a little bit as he's casting spells, and a PC with a high passive perception notices that. These are little things that you could sort of sprinkle in to bring these characters to life. He might use something like Gravity Wave early on. It's a skill that has to recharge, so using it right away gives you more chances to possibly use it later. It also has an area of effect that can attack his allies, so using it at the beginning when they're not as intermingled is a great time for him to sort of pull out that trick. Galsariad's best ability is probably slow. Action economy is huge in D&D, and this ability really changes the action economy of the whole battle. You're limiting the number of actions that PCs can take to 1 action or bonus action per round. You have a chance that their spells that take 1 round could take 2 rounds, in addition to the other benefits like the AC and dex saves and things that will get more hits in from his allies. So I think this ability is huge. I think he's going to use it and maintain it as long as he can to really shift that action economy in the favor of the rivals. Now, if the rivals don't straight out detest the PCs and aren't out for blood, if the person with the Jewel of 3 Prayers gets knocked out, he might just use Mage Hand to extract that and they'll get the heck out of there. Okay, on to Maggie. Now, one of Maggie's goals is to like spar with a tactical genius, so if anyone does anything clever in battle and she doesn't just totally loathe and hate them, she might even compliment or even say something about how impressed she is about that tactic because she just really appreciates it. But on the other hand, as we sort of get into chapter 3 and 4 and the rivals have seen a bunch of really bleak hard stuff, Maggie starts to become more reserved and quieter. I probably will try to play her out talking a lot more at the beginning of the campaign and slowly let that sort of get into her being more quiet. Maybe she's just grunting or, you know, just kind of just so that she has a contrast that shows that sort of character arc for her a little bit. In terms of battle tactics, Maggie is maybe the simplest. She's gonna get in there and hit things. Another thing to know with Maggie is her tactical readiness. Now, hopefully the battle starts where most of her allies are within range of that. It gives a boost to initiative that could really get a lot of her party going ahead of the PCs or whoever they're fighting potentially. It's a nice effect. And last but not least, we have Irvan. Irvan's not my favorite, actually. I've kind of changed my mind. I'm gonna not play with Irvan. I'm playing with 4 PCs. He might be the one that sits this out for me. As far as battle tactics, he doesn't have a ton of spells and different abilities. He's got daggers and they have 2 different types of damage. Notably, he also has this ability Fortitude, which you want to keep in mind because it can get him back to 1 HP when he should have gotten knocked out, which is something that could be, you know, impactful to give him 1 more turn or 1 more chance to do something. You know, if you have a full slate of 5 rivals though, hopefully what he's doing is making use of all these things that he's gotten, the tactical readiness, the blast, actually get in there and do a little bit more damage, be a little bit more effective. Now, Irvan also has a crush on Galsariad. I don't think his loyalty to the group is quite as strong as the leader like Ayo. I could see him trying to just immediately get Galsariad out of there, you know, carrying him away if he gets knocked out, make sure he saves Galsariad, especially if Dermot can't get to him or do anything about him being knocked out. He might even call a truce or try to like verbally end the battle or something like that. I feel like in a situation where Galsariad goes down, Irvan is gonna feel a little bit more desperate. That's how he is in my mind. You may see him differently. Once we get to the point in the plot where it's clear that the rivals are going to leave, the continent of Wildmount or have already left it, Irvan's gonna be a lot more uneasy. He's far away from the Luxon, and this is a game changer for him, and his anxiety is gonna really shoot up because of that. I could see him taking less risks and just sort of playing it a little bit more cautious just because he's a bit nervous. All right, those are our rivals, chapter 3 and 4, tier 2. I want to know if there's ones that you're really looking forward to role-playing or ones that you like the least. Let me know in the comments below, and if you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up. Until then, keep rolling and have fun.